What if I told you the most advanced structure on Earth was built by former slaves in the middle of a desert, without machines, without blueprints, and one mistake meant death? This was not a tent. It was a weapon of precision designed by God Himself. Welcome to Origin Paradox. Most people imagine the tabernacle as a simple tent in the desert. Canvas, ropes, wooden poles flapping beneath the sun. But what was commanded on Mount Sinai was not simple. It was impossible. In the middle of a lifeless wilderness, without infrastructure, without technology, without error tolerance, God did not ask Moses to improvise. He showed him a pattern, not an idea, not a suggestion, a design that already existed. Scripture says Moses was shown the model on the mountain, not described, shown. A heavenly blueprint revealed to human eyes, requiring absolute fidelity. Every measurement exact, every material intentional. No shortcuts, no substitutions. Because this would not be a symbol of God's presence, it would be His dwelling place. And this is where the impossibility begins. At the foot of the mountain waited a people unqualified for such a task, former slaves, generations bent under forced labor. Their hands knew mud, straw, and brick, not gold, not gemstones, not fine linen woven with celestial beings. They were not master builders. They were survivors. Yet God did not change the design to match their limitations. He changed the people. Among thousands, God called one man by name, Bezalel, not a prince, not a noble, a man from the tribe of Judah. And then Scripture records something unprecedented. God filled him with His Spirit, not only for prophecy, not for preaching, but for craftsmanship, wisdom, understanding, knowledge, skill, the ability to work gold, silver, bronze, wood, stone, and fabric with precision that rivaled royal workshops. The first Spirit-filled man in Scripture was not a priest or a prophet, but an artisan. But one man could not raise heaven in the desert alone, so God did something else. He appointed Aholiab to work beside him, and then He gave them a gift more valuable than gold, the ability to teach. Slaves became apprentices. Hands shaped by chains learned precision. Men broken by Egypt began to build for God. But even divine skill did not erase physical reality. The materials God demanded were extreme: pure gold, silver by the ton, rare woods, complex dyes, sacred fabrics, and the desert offered none of it. Gold does not bend to faith alone. It melts at over 1,000 degrees. How do you achieve that heat in the Sinai wilderness? No coal, no modern furnaces, no engineered airflow systems. Yet the gold melted because God had prepared them long before Sinai. For 400 years in Egypt, the Hebrews lived inside the most advanced civilization of the ancient world. They built cities, watched metallurgy, observed kiln systems, absorbed knowledge without realizing they were storing it. And now in the wilderness, that buried knowledge awakened. The desert itself surrendered its secret. Acacia trees, twisted, thorny, overlooked, burned hotter and longer than common wood when turned into charcoal. Clay furnaces were molded into the sand. Leather bellows forced air into the flames. Men worked in shifts, feeding the fire, fighting exhaustion, risking death. This was not symbolic labor. This was lethal heat. Former slaves stood inches from furnaces capable of destroying flesh, hammering molten gold into sacred form, not for Pharaoh, but for the God who freed them. And every strike mattered, because one piece, the golden lampstand, had to be made from a single mass of gold. No welding, no joining. One mistake, and everything would be melted down again. As the gold was forged, so were they. The tabernacle was not being built only out of materials. It was being built out of obedience. God did not choose qualified people and give them a task. He gave them a task and made them capable. And before a single wall was raised, before a single curtain was hung, before heaven would descend, the impossible blueprint from heaven had already begun reshaping the earth and the people who would carry it. Because once the fire was lit, nothing would ever be the same.
The blueprint had been revealed, but revelation alone does not build. In the desert, vision must survive fire. God demanded materials that did not forgive mistakes. Pure gold, refined silver, rare woods. And the command was not symbolic. These were not ornaments. They were structural, functional, sacred. And gold does not obey belief. It obeys heat. To melt gold, fire must exceed 1,000 degrees. In the Sinai wilderness, this was madness. No coal, no engineered furnaces, no margin for failure. And yet the fire burned hot enough, because God had already hidden the answer in the land. The acacia tree, twisted, thorny, dismissed, became the furnace's heart. When reduced to charcoal, it burned slow, fierce, and relentless. Clay ovens were formed directly into the sand. Leather bellows forced air into the flames. Men worked in rotation, feeding the fire, pumping breath into the inferno. This was not holy spectacle. This was lethal labor. 40 degrees beneath the desert sun, 1,000 more within arm's reach. Sweat evaporated before it fell. Water warmed inside skins. Tools scorched hands through cloth. One misstep, one splash of molten metal, and the body paid the price. Yet the work continued. Because every blow carried memory. We are no longer slaves. The most terrifying command concerned one object, the golden lampstand. The menorah was not assembled, it was not welded, it was hammered from a single mass of gold, 1 talent, 35 kilograms, beaten, shaped, and drawn out branch by branch. One crack, and everything returned to the fire. Former slaves stood before impossible heat, shaping sacred light. As the gold submitted to fire, so did they to obedience. But fire was only half the miracle. The skeleton of God's dwelling would rise from a material no one revered. Acacia wood, crooked, thorny, resistant, difficult to cut, harder to shape. God did not choose cedar, he chose survival wood. Each plank had exact measurements, over 4 meters tall, perfectly straight, identical, 48 of them. No improvisation, no variation. Men accustomed to mud and brick now planed and scraped wood harder than stone. Splinters tore flesh, blades dulled. Each plank demanded days of labor, and when one was finished, another waited. Then came the transformation. Every plank, once twisted, once common, was completely covered in gold. The wood disappeared beneath glory. The structure of God's house was not gold alone. It was wood redeemed by obedience. From the outside, it would look ordinary. Inside, it would radiate heaven. But a problem remained. This was not a temple. It could not be buried in the ground. No foundations, no permanence. When the cloud moved, everything had to move with it. How do you stand walls of gold on shifting sand? God's solution was silver. Each plank ended in 2 pegs, and beneath them sat massive silver bases, 1 talent each, heavy, precise, perfectly fitted. These were not decorations, they were mobile foundations. Weight, gravity, and exact alignment held the structure upright. No nails, no screws, no anchors. Engineering beyond its time, revealed in the wilderness. And still, it was not enough. So God added crossbars, long beams passing through golden rings, binding the walls into one body. A modular system, prefabricated, designed to endure assembly and disassembly for decades. 40 years, raised, dismantled, carried, raised again, never warped, never loosened, never failed. This was not human ingenuity alone, it was precision empowered by obedience. Former slaves had become builders of a living sanctuary, not because they were capable, but because they were called. And as the structure stood gleaming beneath the desert sun, one truth became undeniable. God was not merely building a dwelling place, he was building a people capable of carrying his presence. But walls and fire were not enough. The interior still awaited heaven itself, and what was woven next would surpass gold.
The fire had done its work. The walls stood. The gold gleamed beneath the desert sun. But a structure alone does not become sacred. God does not inhabit empty craftsmanship. What remained was the most delicate work of all, the work that could not be rushed, could not be corrected once finished. The interior. Inside the tabernacle, beauty would not be decorative, it would be theological. God commanded fabrics unlike anything the wilderness had ever seen, fine linen woven with living beings, cherubim, not stitched on later, woven into the fabric itself. Blue, purple, crimson, colors rarer than silver. Each thread dyed by hand, each figure planned before the loom was touched. One miscalculation and heaven would appear distorted. And yet, in the desert, women once bent over brick molds now bent over looms, counting threads, calculating patterns, envisioning forms that did not yet exist. The sacred was being built quietly. From the outside, the tabernacle would look ordinary, skins exposed to sun and storm. But inside, golden light danced across woven heaven, the sacred hidden beneath the simple, eternity concealed by humility. Then came the garments, not clothing, protection. Exodus does not describe symbols, it describes survival. To enter God's presence was to stand on the edge of death, and the high priest's garments were the boundary. The breastplate of judgment rested over the heart, 12 living stones, each engraved with a tribe's name, not decorative, carved with surgical precision in gemstones harder than steel. Each stone carried identity, each name carried weight. The priest did not enter alone, he carried a nation. Gold chains fastened the breastplate to his shoulders, physical weight pressing down, spiritual weight pressing deeper. The blue robe flowed beneath it, and along its hem pomegranates and bells, gold bells. Each step announced life. Scripture says the sound must be heard so that he does not die. Silence meant judgment. Some say a rope was tied to his waist. If the bells stopped, no one would enter to retrieve him. He would be pulled from holiness in death. On his forehead, a plate of pure gold. Holiness to the Lord. Not decoration, declaration.
He entered not by name, but by obedience. When everything was complete, God set the date. The first day of the first month of the second year. The silver bases were placed, the golden planks lifted, crossbars slid into place, fabrics draped layer by layer. Heaven was covered. The ark was set within the most holy place. The veil was hung, the table prepared, the lampstand lit. Light touched gold for the first time. The altar burned incense. The house was ready. The question remained. Would God come? The people stood still. The desert quieted. Moses inspected every detail exactly as commanded. No deviation, no innovation. Then it happened. A cloud descended. Dense, heavy, living. It filled the tent so completely that Moses could not enter. The man who faced Pharaoh, the man who climbed fire, the man who spoke with God as friend, he was stopped because the glory of the living God had taken residence. The tabernacle was no longer human work. It was inhabited. From that day on, the cloud moved and Israel followed. When it lifted, they marched. When it rested, they stopped. For 40 years God lived among pilgrims. The tent became the heart of a nation, but it was never the final plan. It was temporary, mobile, a shadow of something greater, a house for the journey, not the destination. The tabernacle pointed forward, to stone, to permanence, to a temple yet to rise. A tent in the desert prepared the way for glory in Jerusalem. And the story does not end here, because what began in fire would one day be fulfilled in stone. And that is the next chapter.